Story 1. The conversation went something like this. Married? No. And you don't want children? No. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, then. Story 2. I was 25, married at the time with 2 daughters and another on the way. I have 3 healthy daughters now. I am 31 now. No complications at all. I got my vasectomy probably 30 days after asking my primary care provider for the consultation. However, mine healed itself and I will need to get another one. Story 3. Family planning. I ended up regretting it later in life when the woman I was married to decided that she wanted a child 10 years later. I had the vasectomy for her because childbirth was too dangerous for her due to a back injury. I am a big fool. Story 4. I was 35. All my doctor said was that reversal is not enjoyable and not guaranteed to work. Every now and then, I still go get checked out of paranoia. Story 5. I knew I wanted one when I first learned about them around age 17 or 18. I also knew no doctor would give me one at that age, so I waited until I was 29 to get one. I honestly did not get any pushback from the hospital. My parents talked to me about it, and they came around and were supportive. I had it this March. Story 6. I was 38, married with 2 kids. I didn't experience pushback from the procedure. However, I did panic on the table as I was not prepared at all. I returned a week or 2 later because I was experiencing a lot of pain. A different doctor saw me, asked me to lower my pants in front of strangers, which was mortifying. He then asked, "Why did you get a vasectomy?" I explained that I was getting older, 2 kids were enough, and my wife shouldn't have to take birth control pills forever for health reasons. I will never forget his rude response. "No, I mean you clearly didn't want to be here, you clearly didn't want to do this. So why are you here complaining about pain and wasting our time?" I was shocked and furious. This was not the story you were looking for. But this doctor was extremely unprofessional. Story 7. 35. Married with 2 kids. The doctor asked how old my youngest was, and I said 8 months. He commented that my family is still very young and things could change. He asked if I was sure I wanted to do this. I found it a bit odd. I was not sure if he was implying that I could get remarried or that one of my kids could die. Obviously, anyone who walks into that office has thought long and hard about the decision. I told him yes, of course, and he said okay and moved on. Story 8. 25. No pushback. $5 copay with Kaiser. The reversal approximately 20 years later was like $15,000 and hurt like hell. Story 9. 28. No children, not married. And a tiny bit, mostly in the form of incredulity. I had to go to a urologist outside the Veterans Affairs because the one there had an ethical opposition to sterilizing anyone without children. I got a lot of "Are you sure?" but no one tried to stop me. Story 10. Got mine at 35. I received no pushback since I was married with 2 children. They asked if I was sure I was done, and then said okay. The procedure was quick and easy. Story 11. Got it at 23 and I have no children, no pushback at all. During the consultation, the doctor tried to gauge my confidence in undergoing the procedure. She said I was well informed and seemed 100% sure about the procedure, then scheduled my appointment. Story 12. I got mine at age 32 after 3 children, and the doctor would not perform the procedure until I brought in a consent form signed by my wife. I also have a child-free friend who had the procedure done by the same doctor. He was single at the time and did not need to have any forms signed. Story 13. There are doctors who specialize in it. I went to one with a funny name, similar to the Cut a Nut Clinic. There was no pushback per se, but my wife accompanied me to the appointment, and they asked both of us to confirm that we definitely did not want children. The doctor explained that there is a chance to reverse the procedure, but it requires expensive microsurgery that is not always effective. He advised that if I had any doubts, I should wait. I did not, and I have not regretted it. It has been about 7 years now, and I am 44. He offered to let my wife watch, which she did. In hindsight, I might not do that. It was not a big deal, but the 2 of them chatted about Game of Thrones while he was performing the procedure, which was disconcerting. Also, he accidentally passed gas during the procedure, which was funny. I received a souvenir Swiss Army knife with the clinic's name on it. I wish there were less invasive, less permanent options for men to take on this responsibility. Our choices are basically condoms or vasectomy. Something in between, like the intrauterine device for women, would be nice. Story 14. It did not happen and is not going to happen, but a friend of mine said they would not let her husband get one at 27 because he is not old enough. I am not sure how or why they would be able to refuse it. They have 3 children. Story 15. I was 20. It took me 2 years to find a doctor who agreed to perform it. I experienced strong opposition from my family and girlfriend, but I remember saying that I would eventually get one since I was 12 or 13, so I did not care. Story 16. The doctor required a 48-hour waiting time, and my wife had to sign off as well. California, 1985. I never went back to that doctor. I actually had it done in 1990 with no waiting period or spouse sign-off. Story 17. I tried when I was 24 and got brushed off. Tried again when I was 29. They asked a few questions but generally shrugged and scheduled me for the procedure the following week. I have never married and have no children. Story 18. I got mine when I was in Germany. The doctor was upset that I was single and had no children. She said, "Well, maybe a future wife will want children." I replied that then she was not the right one for me. She still made me wait 2 weeks to think about it, but in the end, they still did it. Edit. I was 33 or 34 at the time. Story 19. I was married and we had our second child when I spoke to my urologist about getting a vasectomy. There was no pushback, but I needed my wife to come in and sign an agreement stating that she was aware of the procedure. She also gave me a ride home afterward, so it was not an issue. Story 20. 35 years old, married with 2 children, and a surprise third child on the way. No objections from the doctor. This is the best decision I have made. Story 2141. 0 pushback, just a couple of questions confirming that I knew it is not something that can always be reversed. Story 22. I was required to have a doctor interview me, then a psychological exam and approval from my wife. On the day of, they had me talk to the psychologist one last time and made sure my wife was okay with it. The doctor and psychologist told me it was a bad idea. Story 23. I was 21 and received no real pushback since I was overseas. I was already married with 2 children, so they understood. Story 24. About 47 years old. They asked why I wanted the vasectomy, and I explained my reasoning. I received no pushback. I think they were impressed with my logic, or it was the first time they heard that reason expressed that way. I imagine they are looking for illogical reasons, such as "my God told me to get a vasectomy," or possibly force or manipulation of the patient to do the vasectomy against their will. Like, "My wife says she will divorce me if I do not get a vasectomy." Story 25. I am 29 years old. After having 2 children, I was ready. I literally had no hesitation. The doctor explained that it is reversible. I did not share this with my family. Story 26. I was 46 at an army hospital. My medical chart noted, reason for procedure, unwanted fertility, no pushback at all. I even got 10 days of free leave to heal. Story 27. I was about 35 or 36 years old with 2 children. There was no resistance from doctors. They informed me that insurance would cover the procedure. However, if I wanted it reversed, I would have to pay for the reversal myself. Story 28. I was 40, just going through a divorce, and never wanted to have another child with anyone. The doctor spent 3 visits trying to talk me out of it. I never regretted it. Story 29. I was 25. I did get some pushback from the doctor, mostly about having the procedure because of my age. He was concerned that if I got divorced, my new wife would want children. Story 30. No children. I had a girlfriend at the time who had a child without a father. I never wanted any of my own. The doctor spoke with me for about half an hour about how serious it was. By the end of the conversation, I grew tired of being persuaded otherwise, so I lied and said I had already paid for 6 abortions. He scheduled me for a week later. No regrets. Best $600 I have ever spent. Story 31. Late 30s after the third child was born. No pushback from medical professionals because we have doctors here who practice medicine, not religious beliefs. Story 32. Doctor. Okay. Any children? Me, 4. Doctor. Next Friday at my office at 9 a.m. Take the weekend off. I was 40. I had to get my wife to sign a permit that I think needed to be registered with the state. I delayed the procedure until the following year, and the permission slip was not necessary. Story 33. I was 44 years old. I did not get much pushback from my doctor. He was very supportive of my decision. He said there was an 80% chance for successful reversal if done within 10 years. My insurance sent me a check for both the office visit and the payment I made for the procedure. Story 34. I was 34 when I had it done. There was no pushback on why I wanted the procedure. I have long heard that women at younger ages receive more pushback when they want that type of procedure. Story 35. Asked me if I was married and had children. Yes, I am. My wife wants me to be here and wants to stop using birth control. Okay then. Story 36. Somewhere around 40. Pushback. They could have gotten me that day, but I had a playoff game on the weekend. Story 37. 40-ish with no children. You sure? Reversing it probably cannot happen. I am sure. Okay, schedule it at the desk. Story 38. 40-year-old with 3 children. Talked to family practice physician. He said, yes, it is about that time. Okay, here is a referral to a urologist who handles these cases frequently. Story 39. Maybe around 40 years old. I had 2 children by then and did not want any accidents. I discussed it with 2 different doctors who used slightly different methods, made my choice, and that was that. Story 40. I was 32, married with a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. They made sure I was very clear about what I was asking them to do. Yes, this is a permanent birth control procedure that will make me incapable of fathering more children. It seemed like they had had some kind of issue in the past with a patient. Story 41. Tried at 18, got massive pushback. Was going to do private practice at 23, but an emergency used my savings. Tried again through insurance at 30 and there were no problems at all. Story 42. I was asked if I have children, which I answered yes, I have 2. I was asked if I am married, which I confirmed. I was asked if I had consulted and confirmed with my wife that we do not want any more children. I said yes, we had. I scheduled the follow-up and was in and out in 20 minutes. Story 43. I wish I had enough opportunities for this to be a serious consideration. My partner recently reached an age where we no longer have to worry about it. I also got some lubricant because natural lubrication is less reliable now. I will still be intimate as long as I remain capable. However, we are at an age when it is unpredictable. Story 44. I was either 29 or 30 years old. I don't remember whether it was before or after my birthday, but it was close. They went through the motions of asking the questions to fill out the form, but there was no real pushback. I called around until I found one that would do the consultation and operation on the same day. It is worth mentioning that we had just had our second child and were done. Story 45. I am 30 years old, married, and have 3 children. Due to medical reasons, a 4th pregnancy for my wife would be life-threatening. It was easy to convince the doctor at that point. Story 46. I was 40 years old and we had 3 children. There was no resistance. I simply made the appointment. I attended a class on preparation and aftercare with about 12 other nervous men. Kaiser Permanente offered this service only on certain weekdays, so we were queued in the waiting room like boarding groups on Southwest Airlines. Story 47. I am 39 years old, have no children, but my wife was 3 months pregnant, which was planned. The doctor asked me to consider waiting until a while after our child was born. I explained that my wife was 40, and we would not try again even if something went wrong with this pregnancy. He asked again if I would wait. I relented but went ahead with the procedure when my wife was still only 7 months pregnant. This took place in the United Kingdom. Story 48. I was 33, in a relationship and planning to get married. At that time, for reasons I never cared to learn, my partner then, now my wife, didn't like using condoms and I didn't object. However, I noted the unnecessary risks we were taking and decided to do something about it. Also, she was not on birth control and I didn't want her to start because I was concerned it would affect her emotionally, mentally, and physically. I didn't really tell anyone, but I mentioned it to my mom, and she said, "If that's what you want." My partner, now wife, was the most worried because she feared it couldn't be reversed or there might be complications. However, after seeing my doctor's forearms, I knew I was in good hands. Seriously, this guy could probably crush rocks with his bare hands. Story 49. I tried in my 20s and was told, "You might want children in the future, or maybe your future wife will want children," by several doctors. The receptionist for several other doctors flat out told me the doctor would not perform the procedure because I was in my 20s, unmarried, and did not have children. I tried again in my 30s while I was married, and the only question the doctor asked was, "Is your wife on board with this?" She was, and the procedure went smoothly. So much for my body, my choice. Story 50. The rule is that you can always get it if you are 30 or already have 3 children. Once I turned 30, I went to the doctor. He asked basic questions and that was it. No pushback. Story 51. Why do you want one? I am married with 2 children and we do not want any more. Okay. I do not know why they require you to make an appointment with us to book one. You will receive a letter in a few weeks. Story 52. Never had one myself, but a friend got one in his early 20s. He said that whoever he spoke to was reluctant and tried to talk him out of it. I guess, though, it is generally a reversible procedure, so it is not the end of the world if you change your mind later. Story 53. Mid-30s. No children. My wife did not want children, and I was indifferent. Instead of her undergoing a highly invasive hysterectomy, I opted to have a vasectomy. Her family doctor, who also became my doctor, knew her unwavering position and referred me without issue. When I went for the vasectomy, as I was prepared for the procedure and the doctor was typing on his computer, he asked how many children I had. When I answered 0, he tried to convince me to reconsider, even questioning whether he should refuse to perform the procedure. He did perform the vasectomy in the end after some back and forth. Story 54. In my mid-40s, after we had our second child, my wife wanted a third. I said, "No, 2 are enough." So I had a vasectomy with no objection from my wife. Now, it gives me pleasure to enjoy sex without protection. Story 55. I was 32. The National Health Service website advised me to consult my general practitioner. I went to my general practitioner. He asked, "Why have you come to me about it?" I replied, "Because your website told me to." He was surprised and checked the website himself. Eventually, he gave me a phone number to call. I had to wait 9 months for an appointment. I drove myself there and back. There was no resistance since I already had 3 children. Unfortunately, I was unable to get tested to see if it worked because this was during a restricted period. After 13 months, we found it did not work. Now it works. Story 56. I just got it at 40. No pushback. I will say it has reduced the pleasure of almost every orgasm since. It took longer than normal to heal, and my testicles now hurt when I have sex with her from behind while standing. Story 57. 28. Free through the Veterans Affairs. Are you married? No. How many children do you have? 0. Why now? My girlfriend's birth control causes her severe side effects. This is a more effective option, and we will never have to worry about it again. Are you sure? Yes. What happens if you date someone who wants children? It will be a short relationship since I will not be able to have children. That is a significant deal breaker for many people. Story 58. Doctor, you are 28 years old, and I am usually not comfortable performing a vasectomy on someone as young as you. How many children do you and your wife have? Me, 4. Doctor, how is next Tuesday? Story 59. Only 1 child. Yes, that is enough. In my case, they missed the spot for anesthetic on the left testicle. So I remember. Story 60. I was 35, and my wife and I have 2 children. She was pregnant with a third but lost it in a dangerous miscarriage. We both decided to be happy with our two. The doctor was surprised at how calm I was until I told him about the miscarriage, and then he completely understood. Story 61. The doctor made me wait a month to think about it. I had 3 children, my marriage was uncertain, and we had already decided well before that this was the solution. Still, the doctor made me wait. Story 62. At 27, I went to the doctor and explained that I never wanted children. He agreed, and within 30 minutes, I was scheduled for the procedure. I went to the procedure, the doctors prepared me, and we chatted while they started. Story 63. I was 34, recently divorced, had custody of our 3 children, and knew I did not want any more. I called the doctor, made an appointment, and he did not hesitate. He scheduled me right away. I had the procedure on a Friday afternoon and was back at work on Monday. No regrets. Story 64. Asked me several times if I was sure, how long I had been married, 6 years at that stage, and so on. One doctor refused. I called my Medicaid and they scheduled a different doctor. This was in 2010. Story 65. 35. Maybe 37. You understand you might still be fertile for a couple of months after the procedure? Yes. And after that, this is considered permanent? Yes. I have availability next Thursday. Story 66. The doctor asked me how many children I had, and I said, enough. He asked, how many is enough? I replied, none. He laughed, checked my vas deferens, and we scheduled the appointment for the following week. Story 67. The only thing I would mention is that vasectomies and erectile dysfunction are almost never covered by insurance. However, if you pay on the day of your appointment, many clinics offer a steep prompt pay discount. Ours is 55%. Story 68. I was 23 or 24 years old. My wife had major health concerns, so it was relatively easy, but I had to complete a 10-week waiting period, which the military extended to almost 6 months. Story 69. The doctor was fully supportive. I wanted to help my wife stop using birth control. However, it turns out my anatomy is a bit unusual, so the doctor refused to perform the procedure. He mentioned risks such as severe bleeding and lifelong pain, which discouraged me from seeking the procedure elsewhere. Story 70. I am 43, married with 3 children. A local urologist gave some pushback and a dire warning that I would be sterile. His front office was staffed with a rough group, and the entrance to the clinic did not have an Americans with Disabilities Act accessible door. When a patient in a wheelchair tried to enter, nobody offered assistance. I asked a friend who had his procedure done at the clinic, and he said he was warned that one of the staff members always interrupted the procedure to check out the patient, and sure enough, it happened to him. I ended up going to another clinic in a small city an hour away and had a positive, professional experience with the staff and physicians. Story 71. I think I was 33. I had the procedure done at Kaiser. They made me attend a class, which discussed the procedure and emphasized many times that I would never be able to get a woman pregnant again. If I ever wanted more children, I should not proceed. I did not want more children, which is why I was there. I signed the form acknowledging the class and scheduled the procedure. Story 72. I don't know about now, but 30 years ago I made an appointment to have it done. I had just turned 20 and knew I did not want children. I was told I was too young. I said I have 4 nephews and 5 nieces. I am the youngest of 4. After watching my sister and brothers go through financial issues, I knew I did not want it. I went to 5 different doctors and everyone said no, even though I had the money. At that time, it was around $1,200 plus a week off work. Story 73. I will let you know what the doctor says in November. My general practitioner did not give any pushback. They just asked the reason and were okay with my answer. Now, I am just waiting for the procedure and discussion beforehand. Story 74. 29 and almost 0. Why do you want this? I have 3 of those little troublemakers, and they told me you could stop that from happening anymore. Okay. Come see me in a month. Story 75. I am 24 years old and not married. I had to watch an informational video, And that was the only pushback, if you can call it that, I received. Story 76. They said they wanted my wife's consent form. I said we are separated. They said never mind, you are good to go. Story 77. Late 30s, after second child. The only concern was to watch a video and ensure my wife was okay with having no further children, which she was. I made sure it was understood that the procedure is not easily reversible and is a permanent decision. Scheduled and completed free of charge. Story 78. 28 and no pushback. However, for the first 2 years afterward, I had recurring epididymitis affecting my right side only. Story 79. I was 45 years old and had 4 children. My doctor tried to talk me out of it and then told me he could not perform the procedure for religious reasons. He referred me to a colleague of his. Story 80. I was in my mid-20s. Doctors never questioned me why. I was going to marry a woman who never wanted children, and this was a condition of the marriage. 3 years later, we divorced, and I will never have kids. I am in my mid-50s now, have an amazing wife, and have raised her daughter. Story 81. 24 years old. Not married, no children. They asked if I was sure about 5 times. I explained that if I wanted it reversed, it would not be covered by insurance and would only be 70% effective. They asked if I was sure again, and then we got busy. Story 82. No pushback. The 4th person in my friend group just had his vasectomy a week ago. Age ranges are 30 to 38. None of us have or want children. All but one who had a vasectomy are married with no children. I have a stepson but no biological children. The person who recently had the procedure is not married and has no children. None of us had any issues getting it done. Story 83. I was 25 years old. The doctor asked why I would get this done at such a young age. I told him I had 5 children. He pointed and immediately said, "Get on the table." And we laughed. Story 84. Honestly, I read an article. Since vasectomy can be reversed, give teenage boys vasectomy when they are ready for kids and pay for reversal. I think it is a great idea, but the world is not ready for that. Story 85. Yes, the vasectomy reversal was successful. Very lucky because it is usually not successful after so many years. However, her back is injured again now. At least we have a healthy son. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.